Hello, my name is Paul James. I'm a male mental wellness advocate, and today I'm going to be talking about how I pulled myself out of depression. And we're going to discuss that in three parts. First, I'm going to discuss what depression was for me, how I came to find the source of it, and from there, the steps I took to overcome it. Now, before I begin this video, I want to just give two disclaimers. The first is that I'm not a medical expert, I'm not a life coach, I'm none of those things. I'm just somebody who has had these experiences personally. And two, I don't try to claim that what worked for me is going to work for you. We're all very different. The human mind is a very expansive and complex ecosystem almost, and because of that, I don't expect my strategies to work for everyone. But I am hoping that some of the strategies that I developed for overcoming depression, I'm hoping they can maybe provide you with some direction. Okay, so let me start by saying I didn't get depression the same way a lot of people get it. I know a lot of people who struggle with depression, they get it through their childhoods, particularly through childhood trauma, and it's something they've dealt with most of their lives. That wasn't the case with me. I had a fairly normal childhood, and I didn't catch depression until I got Lyme disease. Lyme disease crosses the blood-brain barrier, causes depression. It was my first time dealing with it, and one of the things that really stood out to me when I had the condition was how easy it was for the condition to just barrel into something much worse than I could have predicted. It started off innocent enough: fatigue, low mood, some negative thoughts, but nothing crazy. And within a year or two, it barreled into suicidal ideation. And to this day, that's what freaks me out the most about my personal experience with it, is how quickly and how easily the mind can go from one state to another. And to this day, I still, try to keep an eye on, what's going on in my head, because I do believe I'm susceptible to it. Now that I've experienced it, I think we all are susceptible to it, and knowing how easy it is to slip back into it, part of what I do is prevention, taking the steps I need to in order to ensure I never go down that path again. But when I was struggling with it, one of the biggest things is I struggled with direction. I didn't really know what I was dealing with at the time, and even when I realized what I was dealing with, I didn't know a direction to take. That was my biggest thing. I had no direction. I understand a lot of people who struggle with depression. I understand that they struggle with finding a direction to take for their lives. In fact, I imagine you might struggle with things like your career, relationships. It goes beyond just your mental health. These things affect all areas of your life. So finding that direction was key. And the first thing that led me to that direction was talking to an ayahuasca shaman. Now, I was reaching out obviously out of curiosity. Maybe I could cure this thing through ayahuasca. I never ended up taking ayahuasca, but I did have a conversation with this shaman. And what he told me was, all your issues, all your conscious thoughts, they're coming from your unconscious. And, in my case, Lyme disease rewired your brain, and you need to go in there now and, rewire it back to the way you want it. And this went along the lines of something I had read by Carl Jung. He also discusses how all our conscious thoughts, all our conscious behaviors, they're products of our unconscious. And any changes we'd like to see within our lives, if we want to see major changes happen within our lives, especially in our thoughts and behaviors, what we need to do is change our unconscious. And, there's a number of ways to go about that. You'll hear things like affirmations, for example, which is something I practice. But what I'm more interested in is what's happening at the source of my psychology. What is happening at the core of who I am as an individual? And when it came down to it, I wanted to explore my unconscious. The steps I took were largely meditation, some psychotherapy, some self-hypnosis as well, and then on rare occasions too, I'll take a little psilocybin dose, and I find that to also be a great way to kind of just see what's going on in the back of your head. Now, the thing about those methods I just discussed is they will show you the source of your depression. They will reveal to you, hey, this is where your depression is coming from. This is why you feel the way you do. And they may even, point you in the right direction and say you have to go that way in order to cure yourself. But all those things I listed, they do not solve the problem of depression. They can't. It is up to you and your own willpower to take the right path and to follow through with a treatment plan, whatever that looks like for you, and to implement the discipline to go down that road. So in my case particularly, I was doing the meditation, I was doing the psychotherapy, and one thing that kept coming up was just how much I disliked certain elements of myself. I didn't completely hate myself, but I really disliked certain elements of who I was as an individual. And the more these things came up, the more I saw how they were playing out in my life, how they were playing out in my interactions with others, or in how I was going about my career. And the more I saw them play out, obviously it wasn't the greatest thing to look at, but it gave me the ability to, one, look in the mirror and say, okay, you don't like these things about yourself. And even further, I would be able to look in the mirror and say, okay, well, you don't like these things about yourself, and this is where they're coming from. But what are you going to do to overcome it? And that's what leads me into the final element of how I pulled myself out of depression, which was taking the steps to remedy the things I didn't like about myself. And in my case, one small element was I felt like I was very disingenuous to a lot of people in my life. I felt like I had treated a lot of people poorly, even though it wasn't really a reflection of how I felt about them. And so I reached out to a handful of people and I apologized for my actions. That's just one example of a few things I did, and that was one of the biggest things I was doing. I was taking the steps to remedy the mistakes I had made previously, and I didn't think that would necessarily cure my depression. That wasn't even the goal with it. It was more like I just wanted to fix what I felt I had done wrong in this world, and that was enough to give me a path, though. It gave me a sense of direction, and inevitably it left me with a purpose. And this is one of the biggest things I think a lot of people with depression struggle with. They struggle with finding a purpose. And it's completely understandable. We live in a very toxic environment. We live in a world that doesn't really value a individual sense of purpose. It values monetary gain and then consumerism. And there's absolutely no meaning in that. There's absolutely no meaning in that. And so it's completely natural, in my opinion, that so many people struggle with this, and they struggle with a lack of purpose. And that was definitely my thing for a long time. I definitely struggled with a lack of purpose, and I struggled with finding one. But it never hit me, like a lightning rod or something. It kind of came to me over time. The more I went down this path of trying to remedy my mistakes, the more I began to find myself in this life and find kind of the steps I wanted to take in order to reach the goals that I was just beginning to develop. And it was these things, it was these elements that were really helping to cure depression. I had goals, I had a purpose, I was on a path, I had direction, I knew what I had to do. Not every day was easy. In those early days, I would get up and it would be an absolute nightmare. I'd have a lot of negative thoughts. I'd be struggling with fatigue. I had no motivation at times to do stuff. But it came down to just a sense of I needed to discipline myself to do these things. And I felt like I was aiming towards something higher than myself, that my goals were more of an interest than whatever my self-interest was, if that makes sense. So there was that element of it, and as that happened, it became easier to let go of depression. What I mean by that is it became easier to let go of negative thought patterns I have. And part of what it was for me was I was remedying the mistakes I had made in my life. And because I was doing that, I felt like I could find the forgiveness for myself. I could, every now and then I'd get like a flashback or just the thought of something I had previously done that I really didn't like, that I regretted. And I would think to myself, well, I made that mistake, but I'm doing these things now to make up for that mistake. And, my consciousness is in a much healthier place now. It's in a place where I can continue to do good in the world. And if I let these thoughts continue to get to me, it's going to inhibit the good I could do for myself and for the people around me. And that was the biggest thing. I realized how those thoughts were bringing me down, and they were preventing me from doing good things. And that was the biggest thing for me. It made it easier to just let go of depression and let go of those negative thought patterns. To this day, I continue to follow my purpose. That's part of the reason I'm making the content that's on this channel. And to this day, I continue to practice unconscious exploration. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, I do believe it's important that I prevent myself from going down the negative path of depression, because I do believe I am just as susceptible as I was, when I got it. And it's part of my mission or my goal in this life to prevent that from happening again, and taking the steps I need to continuously take till the day I die to just prevent that from happening again. Like I also said, I don't think my journey through pulling myself out of depression is going to be the same as yours, and even more so, I wouldn't be surprised if the advice I'm offering here might not work for you. We're all different. The path we need to take in order to remedy this, it could look extremely different for you. And, with that in mind, I'm not saying I have the answers. I don't think that what I've been through and the progress that I made is the answer for everyone. I think the human brain is a very complex thing, and what'll work for you might not be the same thing that works for me, and vice versa. So, I just wanted to make this video to, maybe help get some ideas rolling in your head. And if you do feel like you got any sort of direction out of what I said here today, I would appreciate if you left a like on this video, maybe left some thoughts in the comments about your own journey. And if this is a topic that interests you, I invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. That's all we talk about is male mental wellness and how to go on living a better, more holistic life. So thank you for watching. Best of luck in your journey, and I'll see you in the next one.